Hey there, Ash here from Malta Pop, and today I'm reviewing Superman. So, me and the boys from Malta Pop, we went to see Superman yesterday night after analyzing, sleeping on it, rethinking about it, and I still believe that this is a great movie. Now, is it perfect? No. There are some things that didn't work, or I felt they were a bit too rushed. I know there were a lot of people that were worried that James Gunn is going to do Superman, so he's going to make it a pure comedy. It is a funny film. I will say that there are definitely the elements of James Gunn. James Gunn has humor and he puts it in. But one thing I did like about this movie is it's very true to the comics, where it's very colorful. The action is comic booky because lately, especially when it comes to the DC universe, a lot of the films are being grounded. They want them to be more realistic, more like thrillers than comic book movies, at least in my opinion. This is a comic book movie, and I like that. I like my comic book movies to be comic book movies. That's why I think the Marvel movies do well, because they are comic book movies. And this is a comic movie. It has that element like the action is over the top, the humor is good, the colorful costumes. It's not dark, and it's something that I think DC deserved, and I think DC can be proud of it. Now, yes, this is attempt number 3 to launch a DC universe. However, I think this is a good attempt, and I think James Gunn, who's masterminding it all, will do it well. As far as the movie itself, one of the small little nitpicks that I have, I felt that it started a bit too rushed, with lots of things happening. Okay, there was a little bit of text at the start, but there wasn't really any backstory to certain things that was going on. And how it started for me, it was a bit jarring. So at the start, I was thinking, "What's going on?" Like, okay, this is happening. This is all going on. Um, but then it sort of like settled down. We go on, we get a bit more information, and I liked that. As far as the cast go, I thought the cast were all great as their characters. I thought the guy David Cronenberg or whatever his name was. Sorry, me and names, I'm shit. But the guy playing Superman, perfect. I I like his look. He actually feels like Superman. His characteristics. I like that he gave Superman a bit more human vibes. That the last couple of movies, Superman has been like, oh, I felt he was distant himself from other humans. This time, this guy feels very human and very, very like a guy who was raised on Earth or raised in Kansas, and that's what a person should be. And I like how he had that element, but then also the Superman elements and that. Lex Luthor, Lex Luthor is perfect. Probably the most crazy Lex Luthor that we've seen on screen. Well, he is very evil, and there's just this one scene. You've seen the trailer, and he's sort of like playing with guns, Russian roulette, and yeah, he's a bad guy. He's definitely a bad guy. The rest of the cast were great. I did like Lois Lane and all the others, and the whole robots and everything. There's a lot of different characters that work well in this movie. I will say the one thing I did like the Justice League, the Justice Gang. In fact, some people who I watched it with got confused, said, wasn't it the Justice League? Why is Justice Gang? And yeah, this is a whole different area to the Justice League. This is probably the B squad when the Justice League take part. But I did like the reaction, although I did think, gonna be honest, Hawk Girl was maybe underused out of the three of them. But yeah, they were good. They had good chemistry, and yeah, Nathan Fillion was just great and funny. And yeah, he's obviously James Gunn, one of James Gunn's friends, and so he inserts him in a lot of films, like he does with his brother. And yeah, James Nathan Fillion is just a funny guy, and he brought that charismatic to the Green Lantern guy. As far as the action goes, because obviously comic book movies need action, I thought it did well. The CGI stood up. There are a couple of set pieces. Maybe in the other Superman movies, the Snyderverse movies, the action was a bit more like tough. This was a bit more comic book movie action, but it was good. There's this one scene with lasers and all that with his laser eyes, which was really, really cool. Fighting the kaiju, which you've seen in the trailer, was okay. Yeah, it didn't have that much action in the film, but the action there was, it was good. Now, let's get to Crypto. Now, I was excited to see Crypto in this movie from the trailers, and I was kind of worried because, James Gunn, Animals, Guardians of the Galaxy 3, but I can't get into that for now, spoilers. But Yeah, Crypto was really good in this movie. He's very funny, and he adds that comedic effect to the film. And yeah, I thought he was one of the scene stealers in the film. But again, they didn't overuse Crypto because a lot of people think, oh, he's going to base a lot on Crypto. So they didn't overuse him. There was just enough Crypto in the movie to make it cool. As far as the plot goes, it was a pretty basic plot. It actually takes a bit of the stuff from Smallville as well. It takes some plot elements from the other Superman movies, from the comics, so it makes it a whole cocktail. Maybe the plot could have been slightly better, but as I said, it makes up for it in the action and humor and overall spectacle. Also, it's obvious that James Gunn took a lot of inspiration from the Marvel movies and the MCU, because at times certain things that happen you make you feel like you're watching a Marvel movie but with DC characters. There's one thing that happens. I'm not gonna spoil it, but it's very reminiscent of when the Hulk smashed Loki in the Avengers, and you get that feeling. And I wasn't the only one. Like 7, 8 other people in the cinema said, "Oh, that reminded me of that." So yeah, big inspiration from MCU. But obviously he works for them, so yeah, it's gonna be that. And that's not a bad thing because the MCU has been going strong for a long time. In conclusion, Superman is a great movie and a great start to DC attempt number 3. Yes, there are things that can be worked on. Yes, James Gunn can maybe tone down the humor a little bit, especially if he's gonna make a Batman movie. We don't want a Batman movie dark, but we don't want it a pure comedy 1960s style. But there's a middle ground, and I'm sure he can find it. So yeah, I'm gonna give this movie a 4 out of 5. It's definitely worth checking out, especially if you love the character of Superman, if you like DC, and even if you're a bit hesitant because you didn't like what DC did before. Give this one a chance, especially if you like Marvel, because you might tend to like DC from now on. Anyway, that's it from me. If you did like this video, remember to subscribe to the Malta Pop channel because we do lots of geek content. And yeah, I'll see you next time. Bye bye.